Alright, so a couple months ago, a company called Hex Gaming reached out to me and asked if I wanted to be sent over their esports level PlayStation 5 controller for review. And honestly, I jumped at the chance because, in my opinion, there aren't a lot of really good options for esports level PlayStation 5 controllers on the market at the moment. Don't get me started on scuff. You guys know my opinions on scuff controllers. I jumped at the chance of reviewing this Hex Gaming Rival 2 controller, and in today's video, I am going to be giving you guys my thoughts on it. So I've been using the Hex Gaming Rival 2 controller for over a month now, and that's generally the amount of time I like to try out a product before I give it a proper review, just so you have an idea of durability as well as quality. And I have to say, I am very impressed with Hex Gaming's top of the line controller. Top of the line meaning it is also their most expensive controller at $289 US, but it also has every single bell and whistle the company offers. So let's go through each feature one by one. All right, so let's start off with the overall aesthetics as well as the ergonomics of the controller when you hold it in your hand and look at it for the very first time. So Hex Gaming kind of reminds me of another company that I tried last generation called Battle Beaver. I don't think that company is making current gen controllers quite yet, but basically both companies, they take the base PlayStation 5 controllers and add modifications to it separately. They do not rebuild the controllers from the ground up because that way they would have to avoid a whole bunch of patents that Sony and Microsoft have spent millions of dollars in investing into. But what they're doing is selling modified controllers, which I wholeheartedly do appreciate, because when you hold it in your hand, it feels like, when you pick it up, like any other PlayStation 5 controller, except for the paddles on the back, as well as some minor tweaks as well. So on the surface level, when you first look at the controller, you immediately see the wrap that has been placed around the handles as well as the touchpad of the controller. The wrap not only looks good so far after a month of use, has been very durable. You also see that they have swapped out the traditional face buttons for blacked out buttons, which I do appreciate as well. It gives it a much nice cleaner look. And as well, you can see that they have replaced the center PlayStation 5 home button with their own logo. So flipping to the back controller, you'll obviously notice the paddle attachments, which is the reason why it's an esports level controller. We're gonna get back to that in a second, but I want to bring attention to the fact that they have also swapped out the back plate and have interchanged it with a new plate that is not only grippy, it also has a nice rubbery feel to it. So it's a little bit softer to hold in the hands than the traditional back plate. All right, so now let's move on to the actual modifications on this controller that are more geared towards esports people. So the first being is the interchangeable thumbsticks. So you get a pack of thumbsticks that come with the controller itself. You get some ones that are concaved as well as convex, domed, or with a little bit of a divot, depending on which one you actually prefer. You also receive one extra high one for those people who like to play a lot of first-person shooters and use something such as a control freak to raise the height of the right thumbstick. Like I said, they are interchangeable. They quickly come on and off, and you can order more of these obviously as well as they become more worn down just with general use. So the next modification that is worth noting is the change to the shoulder buttons as well as the trigger and bumper buttons. So they have reduced the travel time. I'll show you guys a picture right here of the exact numbers of how the travel time has been shortened versus the traditional PlayStation 5 controller. This is a blessing and a curse at the same time, because this really makes it so if you're playing a game where half pressing or depressing the trigger button basically dramatically changes the function of the game, such as in a game like Ratchet and Clank, there really is no in-between, so you'd actually have to reach back for a normal PlayStation 5 controller. Alright, so moving on to the third, final, and most important feature of this controller, and that is the rear programmable paddle attachment. That's what makes it an esports level controller. So each of these two paddles, there's one on each side, can be programmable to almost every single button on the PlayStation 5 controller. The only exceptions is that you can't program it to the share button, the home button, which is down here, as well as the option buttons. Those are the only three buttons that you cannot program it to. Everything else is fair game. The D-pads, the L3 and the R3 in the joysticks, obviously the face buttons as well. And what I love about this is that you can program this on the fly really quickly, and I'm going to show you how. So first you need to turn on the controller by pressing the home button. Once the controller is on, you take and press the rear paddle attachment button right here for a couple seconds. You wait for the light to come on. That means when the light's on, that means it is in pairing and mapping mode. So first, and then you need to decide what you want to map. So I'm going to take the right paddle. I'm going to press it down and hold it. Then you want to press down whatever face button that you want to program it to. So in this particular case, I'm going to use the traditional X. I'm going to hold it down for a couple seconds. You're going to see that red light on top flash for a second and then become a steady red light. Once it is steady, that means it has been programmed. And then we need to exit pairing and mapping mode, and by holding down once again the back button on the rear and wait for the light to turn off. And after that's done, that's pretty much it. That's how you map the back paddles on the controller, which is very quick, very easy, and you can do it on the fly, which is the most important feature. Alright, so what are my final thoughts on the Hex Gaming Rival 2 PlayStation 5 esports level controller, and is it worth your time and money at $289 US? So admittedly, $290 is a steep price to pay for one single controller. That's over half the price of the actual console itself. But I have to say, if you do invest in one, you won't be disappointed with your purchase because it's held up well. I'm a very heavy presser and heavy user of my controllers, and it just feels very natural in your hand because it is a PlayStation 5 controller that has been modified. But there is a caveat to that. So upon my research of looking for comparables for other esports level controllers, I did find out one thing. It's kind of funny that all the modifications that you find on this controller, everything from the back paddle attachment to the textured grip to the interchangeable thumbsticks, as well as the hairpin shoulder buttons, you can actually buy separately as a mod kit on Amazon and pretty much DIY it yourself if you are a person who feels comfortable doing so. I personally probably wouldn't be as comfortable doing it because if you buy the controller itself, it's fairly expensive, and if you screw it up, you're not only out the money for the controller, you're also out the money for the mod kit. But if you are a confident person in your DIY skills, then maybe have at it. So I've done the math right here. You can check out the math of all the modifications that this controller houses. The only thing that I've excluded is their personal wrap, which I admittedly, it has been done almost flawlessly. They have done an extremely good job with the wrap, but you can pretty much look at the comparable of prices right here and see if it's worth your time either doing it yourself, or maybe if you don't want the hairpin triggers because you don't want to run into a feature where it's incompatible with specific games that you want to play, that is something that you have to decide on your own. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is my review of the Hex Gaming Rival 2 controller. In my personal opinion, it is the best esports level controller that you can buy on the markets today, but it does come at a steep price, and you could do it yourself if you feel confident. If I were to give it a review score based on performance to value, I would give it a score of 8 out of 10. So check them out. You can find everything in the description below. They link to the Hex Gaming site as well as links to all the modifications if you're a DIY person and you want to do it yourself. And let me know what you guys think. If you are interested in picking one up, if you guys are interested in doing the modifications yourself, let me know in the comment box below, and I will see you guys in the next video.